Hello and welcome back to the DoneDeal YouTube channel, and today we're joined by BMW's new flagship car. It's the iX. There's a few different variants today. We're going to be exploring them, showing you some of the highlights, driving it, seeing is it potentially one of the best electric cars you can buy out there. Now this is actually BMW's second fully electric car built from the ground up. There was the i3 and then we have this. Now in the middle there we had the iX3, which we have reviewed and you can watch up there. It's a brilliant standalone electric vehicle, so I'm looking forward to taking this one, testing it out, putting it through its paces and seeing how it holds up against all the competition. This is DoneDeal. Make sure to subscribe, and if you'd like to search for cars for sale from over 1,000 trusted dealerships around Ireland, then hit the link up there. Now let's get into the review. Beginning with the different variants, this is the iX40. Now that means that it's got a usable 71 kilowatt hour battery. It's got a range of up to 414 kilometers. Now in the real world, when I collected this fully charged, you're talking 380 kilometers, which is still fine, and that's the same across all electric cars. In terms of power, it's got about 320 horsepower, and very importantly, it costs 92,000 euros. And in fact, this one's spec'd up to about 98. So to get the iX40, you're talking about 100 grand to have the right spec. Now there's a step up from this called the iX50. Now this thing is insane. It's got a 105 kilowatt hour battery. Now that's about as big as you'll see in any electric car on the market. It's got a range of over 600 kilometers, over 500 brake horsepower, and brace yourselves, it starts at 144,000 euro. It's a lot of money, but it's also a lot of car. And then there is also an iX60, which is going to be preposterously expensive, but also it's going to be insane. So I'm no doubt we'll see quite a lot of them, but realistically 80 or 90% of the market is going to be these iX40s. So we're going to test this today, put it through its paces and see what it's like. Now, if the prices have frightened you, just stay with us because the tech backs it up. This is the front grille, and obviously it's a big talking point around a lot of BMWs, and I'm not going to go into that, but I am going to talk about some of the cool tech. So this is a polyurethane grille, I think that's what it's called, and behind it it's got loads of sensors. However, if this scratches, it's able to self-heal with a bit of heat. And actually, if you get a heat gun, you can heal it up. So I'm going to take out my knife and test it. No, I'm not actually going to do that. I'd be shot. But that is some really, really cool technology. It heats up. It's very, very impressive. And a lot of times in modern cars with the front sensors, when it's awful weather, snowy or hailstones, they don't function. Whereas this heats up and will melt it all away, which is really, really cool. Now on the side, personally, I think I'm seeing a bit of Rolls-Royce colour in there. I don't know if I'm the only person. This one's got some upgraded 22-inch alloys. They're absolutely massive. They're diamond cut, and they're going to be expensive if you curb them. However, there's tech to help you avoid that. Another cool feature to point out is how the door handles open up in there. Quite simple, nicely hidden away, but it's very satisfying to open. Then the rear, for me, it is these rear lights. Wait to see how they kind of light up like that. How cool is that? And all that just a touch of the finger. Now, I do really like the styling out here. It kind of hangs over, and down here you've got some diffusers. It's not too wild. It's probably not the iX's best angle. I actually quite like the front. But what you will see is with the electronically open boot, it's like a perfect rectangle. And in here there is plenty of space. As you can see, we've got camera equipment, jackets, and it's absolutely perfect. What I will say though, at 500 litres, it's about 20% smaller than a normal X5, which maybe is a little bit of a sacrifice, but to be honest, it's still plenty big. Right, so in the rear, the first thing I want to point out is the carbon fibre here on the door frames. So kind of similarly to the i3, the whole structure of the car, not the whole structure, but quite a lot of it's built out of carbon fibre. Mind you, it still weighs 2.5 tons, so it's not exactly very light, but in terms of space in the rear, tons of knee room, tons of room for your feet, a little spot down here to kind of put in any magazines or iPads. Speaking of iPads, I quite like this. You can essentially put your iPad into the seat in front of you so kids stay entertained. 2 USB-C charging points on both sides. Armrest, again, really nice and comfortable. And of course it has drink holders because everything in here is quite premium. Now if you do have young kids, then you can of course put the ISOFIX points in there so the child seats are nice and safe. And as a whole in here, it's absolutely glorious. However, I would rather sit in the driver's seat, so let's check that out. So the interior, as they say on MTV Cribs, this is where the magic happens. Now, I actually am going to show you some of the cool features that the iX has in a minute, but first I'll run you through here. And we'll begin with storage. So there's big storage bins in here, drink holder, wireless phone charging, more drink holders, huge big center console there. Glove box, if we're going to nitpick, it's a little bit small. However, this is actually my favorite feature and I find myself using it. Look at that little tidy spot for your phone. Absolutely brilliant. And as a whole in here, you can't lie, it is glorious. The steering wheel, it's a huge, unusual talking point because first of all, as I said, it's huge, it's actually quite big, but also it's not really square, it's not really circular, it's, I think the word they use is hexagon, but it is really nice, and I actually like on a long drive putting your arm down here, it's just quite relaxing, and it's fully electrically maneuverable, which is so cool. Now in terms of the infotainment system, well, this is a tech guru's paradise. So you've got, I think, a 12-inch screen here and a 15-inch screen here. It's fully curved, which is really, really nice, kind of faces the driver. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto comes as standard, which is really, really useful. And do you know what else is nice? You don't have to plug it in. There's no cables, so really, really like that. Now, in front of you here, you have all the usual kind of driver information. So your speed, how much battery percentage you have, of course, how much battery percentage you're using. Then over here on the main screen, it can be controlled both down here using this little swivel dial and a couple shortcuts, but also fully touchscreen. Now, I'm going to be honest, it's, am I being mean by saying this? Probably, but it's a little bit overcomplicated. To put that in perspective, I genuinely don't think my granny would be able to drive this car. It's very difficult to use. It has so much, which is amazing, but it's not that intuitive. And when you're driving along the road and you're actually trying to do something in the settings, it can be a little bit confusing and distracting. Now, in terms of all the usual features is there, as I said, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, the sat nav, it's really cool, we'll show you that later. It has your climate in here. Normally I don't like climate being in here, but actually is pretty intuitive, and it's got a heated steering wheel, heated seats, that's part of a winter pack. But again, it has everything you could ever wish for. You can even take a selfie through the car. I can't do it because I'm not signed up to BMW ID, but if you had it, you could literally take a selfie with all your friends or your family in the car, which is really, really cool. Now, I could go on with this for hours, but instead of doing that, what I'm going to show you now is 5 or 6 things that I've just found really cool on the BMW iX. This is amazing technology. So basically, if you press this button here, you can adapt how much sun comes in through the panoramic roof. 10 out of 10 for class there. I have never sat in a seat that's as adjustable as this. You go into seat comfort and you can change absolutely everything, to your lumbar support, to down here, to the side bolstering. It's actually phenomenal, but it goes one step further. You can actually turn on the seat massager as you drive along. So one of the most impressive things, and where you're really seeing your money go, is the reversing camera. The whole setup is brilliant and you can actually customize it. So here you can see a side view of the car. But watch what happens here. So I don't know if you've ever had this problem, but sometimes when your car gets dirty, your cameras get dirty. However, on the BMW, you can actually clean them. How cool is that? The sat nav on this is next level. So basically, as you're driving along, it shows you an animated version of where you need to go when you come up to a junction. So as you can see now,
left in 200 meters onto R115.
When Mrs. BMW goes quiet, as we come up to the junction, it uses the front cameras and shows me that I need to turn. Now that is absolutely brilliant. How cool! The door release mechanism, also known as the door handle. Well, in here there isn't one, and it's very unusual. You essentially just press this button and the door pops open. That I'm a big fan of. So when you start up the iX, the steering wheel presents itself to you and you pull this lever here and you put it in gear. Now as we pull off to drive, it's remarkably silent. And to drive it is very smooth. I find the suspension really absorbs every little bump you cruise over, and even on potholes and speed bumps, it just takes them with complete ease. Now in terms of size, that's maybe one bit of criticism I have. It's potentially ever so slightly too large for Irish roads. Now dimensionally speaking, it's very similar to an X5, so if you're coming from that, it's going to be fine. But I do find on some of the narrower country roads, you find yourself checking out your wing mirror to make sure it's not going to hit the car coming the other way. But I'm sure you do get used to that. As far as your creature comforts come, you've got your heated steering wheel, heated seats. It's lovely, and it is a great place to be, and you are aware that you're in something a little bit special. Now, one thing I do really want to point out, because it's one of the best in the business, is the regenerative braking. So if you pull it into B mode, when you take your foot off the accelerator, it really comes to a complete halt. So just there we were cruising at 60 kilometers per hour and now we are stopped. So that means when you're driving this car day to day, you don't really use the brake pedal. Now, genuinely, there are 3 cars that do this well in the world. The Nissan Leaf, the Volvo XC40, and now the BMW iX. It's really, really good, so it's worth pointing out. Then when you do want to kind of push it on a bit, there's 322 brake horsepower and it's quick. It's 4-wheel drive, it feels very, very planted. And whilst it's not an M car, it is quite enjoyable to drive, and I have to say it's good in that respect, particularly because it weighs 2.5 ton. It doesn't feel like it weighs 2.5 ton, so hats off to the engineers in that department. Now, the Harman Kardon sound system is one upgrade I completely can't recommend enough. It is phenomenal. I can't play music because we'll get done for copyright, but there's almost a subwoofer under my seat here, and it just puts you in a good mood and gets the vibes going. And I know I shouldn't be saying the vibes in an automotive car review, but trust me, that's one of those things that I personally like on a long drive, to just get the music going. And it's, again, one of the best in the business. And this is where we're really seeing the iX pulling ahead, is these little small touches. Now, in terms of driving around town, which I think is quite important because a lot of these will be there, turning circle isn't fantastic. So when you're making a U-turn, you do kind of end up doing a 5-point turn instead of a 3-point turn. But parking is quite easy, particularly because of all the help you get from the cameras. It's brilliant. So you don't really struggle with that, but you are paranoid leaving it in a car park because it takes up so much of a car parking spot. You're worried people are going to bang their doors off you. But yeah, as a whole, it's lovely to drive. There's no two ways. I'd be lying if I said anything else. And I wish I could keep it forever. In terms of charging, well, like a lot of electric cars, the iX has very fast charging capabilities. So the iX40 can charge at 150 kilowatts and the iX50 can actually charge at 200 kilowatts. Now, what this means is you can get a fast charge of, let's say, 10 to 80% in under 40 minutes, which is very respectable. That's obviously as long as you can find the fast charger infrastructure. And in Ireland, it's really only the Ionity. Now, that said, let's talk about charging up at home, because it does kind of get interesting. So the iX40, you'll have no problem parking up overnight. It'll charge to a full charge on a 7 kilowatt charger in 10 hours. So that's fine. When you get home from work, it'll be ready to go the next day. But if you get the iX50, it's actually going to take nearly 18 hours to get a full charge at home. So in other words, if you're doing a lot of driving, it's probably not possible to have that. And that's one thing I always think. This car, in terms of if we're to compare it to a Tesla, because a lot of people are going to be in that position, it is in every single way superior. It is built by the Germans and they've done a fantastic job. The quality, the finish, the tech, everything about this is superior, except it doesn't have the Tesla fast charging infrastructure. So if you're looking for a car that you're going to be driving around town, you're not doing a whole lot of mileage, this is definitely the one to go to. But if you're doing a huge amount of motorway mileage, let's say Dublin to Cork every day or whatever it might be, then maybe the Tesla has the edge on it. But I'll leave that one up for you guys to decide. So there you have it, that is DoneDeal's review of the BMW iX, and it has to be said, it's a phenomenal car. Definitely, I think, in terms of value for money when it comes to just purely range, it's maybe a little bit on the expensive side at close to 100,000 euros. You would kind of like to have closer to 500 kilometer range, but that aside, essentially what it misses in range, it makes up for in blissful interior and incredible technology and really good build quality. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please make sure to subscribe and give the video a thumbs up and even a comment. It helps the algorithm out massively and we really appreciate it. If you are searching for a new car, then make sure to hit the link up there. We've got over 1,000 trusted dealerships around the country, which means that you can buy with confidence and security. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.